Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Geico makes it easy to get affordable renter's insurance in as little as 90 seconds. That way, you have more energy for harder things, like the laundry. Why is it so difficult to fold clothes? They just end up wrinkly anyway, or on the floor in a pile that just sits there, taunting you. But with renter's insurance through Geico, at least you know that those clothes and the other things you love are covered. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 273 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Mazda CX-50, the Rolls-Royce Ghost Black Badge, the Mercedes Sprinter all-wheel drive diesel, the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, a wrap-up from the LA Auto Show, including the Fiat 500e coming back to America, an interview with Larry Dominique, head of Alfa Romeo and Fiat for North America, and a bunch of listener questions. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 273 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam LeBoule-Salmon from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeland from the Fast Women podcast.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from, let's say, Jalopnik this week.
Ooh, that's a new one.
I know. I'm just collecting publications like they're Pokemons.
Gotta catch them all.
Gotta catch them all.
What did you do for Jalopnik?
I can't say.
Oh, okay. That's still under embargo?
It's still under embargo. It's a secret.
All right.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
Secrets.
Okay. Well, for those listening, we're actually trying something new right now. Trying to migrate away from Twitter as much as we can. And so I've set up a Discord. I will right now it's only available to people supporting us on Patreon. If once I figure out that things are working, we may open it up to the rest of you. And we're actually, I think we're live streaming what we're talking about right now. We'll see. I'm not entirely sure. It says it's streaming. It says your stream is still running.
Woohoo,
We've paused this
working.
preview to save your resources. So we'll see what happens. See if we get any feedback from patrons about how it worked or didn't. But since we've got some stuff that's under embargo, and we're scrambling to get working here because Nicole's power flaked out just as we were about to start.
It may again.
It may again. So
Nicole's in the storm center.
There's
Storm Watch
we have
2022.
a gale force warning for the next 12 hours, and I think my house may be whisked away to Oz at any moment. So
we actually got about an inch of snow here last night, and even though it was paltry amount of snow, I decided to take out my new electric battery-powered snowblower just to try it out because I just wanted to see
An inch of
and it worked.
snow.
that's like peak guy. I don't really need this, but I'm going to use this new
I'm gonna
power
run
equipment
out.
Well, I know
right
I'm
now.
going to need it, but I wanted
this
to
month.
test it, while it,
While
before it was, before
3
I
feet.
could still return it if I needed to.
And you're keeping it? It
Yeah, I'm
performed
gonna keep it.
acceptably? Okay.
It performed acceptably.
That's
1 inch.
excellent.
It works. It works well in 1 inch of snow.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, all the reviews I watched say it works great, in deeper snow too. So we'll see
Okay.
what happens.
3 inches of snow.
Yeah, I'm gradually shifting into this electrified life. I've been using an electric snowblower for several years, or rather an electric lawnmower. Now I'm shifting to an electric snowblower. Eventually, I might get an electric car. We'll see.
I have an electric. We have a gas snowblower. None of this electric snowblower stuff.
We have
I need to get 3 feet of snow in one hit. I don't think I'm ready for an electric snowblower just yet.
Well,
When
the nice thing about I had an electric gas one that I used for 15 years, and still run good. But they had the fumes and the noise and everything. This one's so much quieter. Just
Peaceful.
does this thing. Yeah.
I worked on a farm as a teenager because, of course, I did. And then I also did landscaping. I had like a little landscaping business that I did. And I hated using the gasoline, everything. And so when we bought our house, like everything I'm buying is electric. Because I just remember let me do the mixture. Oh, let me clean the spark plug. Oh, let me try to yanking on the stupid weed whacker. It's all flailing in my little weakling arms. No, no. I'm an adult. I went to college. I'm buying electric things. I just slap the thing on and everything works. There's no more.
Okay.
All right. Well, I've got a couple of things that I drove that are not electric. We'll start off with the Mazda CX-50 Turbo. So the CX-50 is the new compactish crossover. It's roughly the size of a CX-5. Not really a direct replacement for the CX-5. It's I guess supposed to be a little more rugged looking. So it's got slightly different design direction for Mazda. Where it looks like it's a little bit lower roofline, a little more flared out fenders. To give it slightly more off-roaderish kind of looks.
Off-roaderish, is that a professional term?
Off-roadish.
Off-roaderish.
I actually did. I drove the CX-50 on the off-road course at the Mama Spring Rally at Road America last May. And they actually had two different courses there. And the day we were doing the off-road stuff, it was raining, so it was nice and muddy. They had two different courses. One for the real off-roaders, like the Wranglers and big trucks and stuff like that, and then another one for back in the early '90s when these small crossovers first started coming to market. I remember the car magazines referring to these as soft rotors.
Was that really a thing? Soft rotors? I'd never heard that before.
Rotors.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a weird term. How is that even like?
I don't know.
Whatever.
That's what they called them. And this definitely falls into that category. It did okay. It's not going to take any. It's going to be fine on a muddy, slightly muddy trail. Out to your cabin or your cottage or something like that. But you're not going to want to take this on the Rubicon. It doesn't have that kind of ground clearance. But I spent the week with it, driving it around. This is the version with the 2.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder. You can also get it with a naturally aspirated 2.5. And those started about $27,000 and change. This one was not $27,000 and change. This was the high end version of it, which what do they call it? This was the Premium Plus package, the CX-50 2.5 turbo with Premium Plus package, all-wheel drive, and it had the Soul Red Crystal metallic paint, which is still the best color in the industry.
Yeah.
Still looks fantastic on this thing. Inside it feels like pretty much any modern Mazda, which is a good thing. Feels very premium. Much more so than most of its competitors in the same price class. Very nice materials and fit and finish. As with other modern Mazdas, it does not have a touchscreen. It's got the central controller, so I know that that would automatically be disqualified in the Wakeland household.
Yes, it would.
But the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay work fine on there. I like the 2.5 liter turbo. It's a really nice engine, 227 horsepower, and about 310 foot-pounds of torque. So it's got plenty of torque for this thing. All-wheel drive, as I said. It's fairly roomy. It's comparable to other vehicles in the class like the RAV4 and the Honda CR-V and elsewhere. So you've got room for 2.5 adults in the back seat, and plenty of cargo space in the back. I think I personally like the styling of the CX-5, which is more of the typical Honda styling or Mazda styling language, current generation styling language than this one. But it's still an attractive vehicle, especially in this color. Leather seats, lots of options in here, heated seats and steering wheel, which was good because this arrived just as temperatures were starting to go from the 70s down to the 30s and the 20s. so that was handy to have that extra bit of heating in direct contact with my body. Rear power liftgate, black trim on the grill and around various other places on the vehicle. Just a generally very pleasant vehicle to drive on the road as a daily driver. Given that most people today, are buying vehicles of this type, compact to mid-sized crossovers, it drives like you would expect a Mazda to drive, which is to say, very well. It's very, very comfortable, but good body control, good ride quality, good handling. It's just a great vehicle. As I said, at the starting price, it's also quite a good value. The version that I had with all the stuff on there, the 20-inch wheels, the 245, 45, 20 all-season tires, the rain sensing windshield wipers, and all the other goodies. Value is not quite as much in the equation here. The sticker price, the MSRP, $42,300. Plus another $595 for the Soul Crystal Red paint.
I mean, I pay for the paint. The paint is really pretty, that color.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I would go for one of the lower trim levels with that paint. Don't know that I would necessarily go for the Premium Plus. There's a lot of the features that you really want, like the heated seats and stuff you can get on some of the lower end trim levels.
There are 10 packages for this car.
Yeah.
Are there really? Did you just look it up?
Yes.
Is it really 10?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
10 packages.
Which is unusual for a Japanese car.
Yeah. Or for Mazda,
and this one,
who's not a big,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first Mazda in a while that's been built in North America. It's built at the plant, the joint venture plant that Mazda has with Toyota in Alabama, I think? Yeah, Alabama, where Toyota also builds the Corolla Cross. And of the two vehicles coming out of that factory, I think I would definitely take this over the Corolla Cross. This is definitely much more engaging to drive. It doesn't have a CVT; it has a 6-speed automatic transmission.
Yeah.
So it's the Corolla Cross, on the other hand, is a lot more fuel efficient than this one. With the turbo, it's EPA rated at 25 miles per gallon combined, so 23 city, 29 highway. As the weather started getting colder, I was getting closer to about 21, 22 average, which is not particularly exceptional for
a small crossover.
Not particularly great for a smaller crossover, but it is quick. So it's got plenty of performance. If you want better fuel efficiency, you probably want to go with the naturally aspirated one instead of the turbo, but it won't be quite as much fun to drive. At least not in terms of acceleration. You're still gonna have really good handling and driving dynamics, but it's just not gonna have the acceleration capability. So, any guesses on the destination charge?
Oh, $1,300.
Nicole?
$1,295.
Ooh, you're so close. Nicole's actually closer, but you're both over, so you both lose the showcase.
Oh gosh, dang it.
$1,275.
$1,275?
I was so close.
Yes, you're off by $20 in the wrong
Dang
direction.
it!
I think
Either we
Nicole
both
wins.
lose or Robbie wins every time.
Either I win or everyone loses. That's the
Everyone
rule.
loses. Just let
No
him
one's
win.
allowed to-
Like
no
the
one's allowed
Wookiee.
to
Just let the Wookiee win. He always wins. Okay.
You should have said $1, Nicole.
I should have said it.
That's the
Yeah.
power move.
Dang
$1.
it.
Wait till I just yell out a number and then say $1.
$1.
I mean, if you're not going to go over, you might as well go with a buck. All right. The other thing that I drove, it was actually 2-3 weeks ago now that I drove it during the BMW Test Fest when I was out in Palm Springs to drive the new 7 Series and the updated X7 and stuff. They had a whole bunch of other BMW Group vehicles available to drive. So they had X5s and X3s and X1s and Minis and they even had Jerry Spahn came out with a pair of Rolls-Royces.
Ooh.
He brought out a Phantom, and they brought out a Ghost Black Badge.
And what did you think?
So I drove the Ghost Black Badge, and I was really impressed with this car. I mean, was not we drove it. I drove it from the hotel up there's a curving road that goes up to the Coachella Valley Vista site. Vista Point, that's it. And it's a really nice twisting road. It's a good way to exercise, the driving dynamics of a car. And I was shocked at how good this thing was. I was not expecting a big ultra luxury sedan to be able to be that composed in that kind of driving environment. Now, the Black Badge, it was something that was introduced, was it earlier this year, I think, or late last year? It's a package that you can get on various Rolls-Royce models, including the Ghost, that gives the grille trim and the Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament and everything are done in a black chrome finish instead of the traditional silver chrome finish, and makes it look slightly more sinister. It also gets a little more performance. It gets like 28 extra horsepower. So the 6.
But it's also like 700,000 pounds. So 28 horsepower is
not going to do much for the weight of that thing.
It's a 6.75 liter twin turbocharged V12, 591 horsepower in Black Badge trim.
So 28 is yeah.
28. You'll notice it. What are you talking about, Robbie?
Probably not. But I mean, it also tightens up the suspension a little bit and things like that. And the Ghost, is the smaller Rolls-Royce sedan, and smaller here being a relative term.
It's the Civic of Ghosts.
Compared to a Phantom, it is slightly less ostentatious. It weighs roughly 3 tons. So this is not a svelte vehicle, but it's really nicely proportioned. I've always thought the Ghost was a very handsome car. It doesn't have that over the top kind of look that you might expect from a Rolls-Royce. And compared to like the Dawn, I forget which one is the Dawn, the convertible, the 2-door convertible.
Yeah,
I think so.
And I forget what the coupe is called. It's got a more classic Rolls-Royce look to it, but it's a very handsome vehicle. And while
cool.
it's not, and it certainly doesn't have the handling that you would have. Certainly, it's not quite up to the same standard as a 7 Series, like a 760i. It's slight. The body's not quite as buttoned down. The body motions aren't quite as buttoned down as a BMW branded vehicle. There's a little bit more motion, but all things considered, it was a lot more controlled than I expected it to be. And it's with all that power, it's got plenty of acceleration capability. It's got big brakes on it on the Black Badge, one thing is, despite its size, it doesn't necessarily feel exceptionally roomy on the inside, especially in the back seat, because the Ghost is the Rolls-Royce for those that generally want to drive themselves, as opposed to being driven by their chauffeur. If you want to be driven around, you get a Phantom, and you sit in that big rear seat area. Mm-hmm. If you want to drive your Rolls-Royce yourself, you buy a Ghost or a Dawn or something. And so the back seat didn't feel quite as commodious as I expected, given its size, but it's more than adequate. And it has a very.
You just described a Rolls-Royce. It's more than adequate.
It's more than adequate.
Whatever. It's more than adequate.
It has that very traditional British luxury feel in front. It's lots of wood and everything, and it feels very traditional. Let's put it that way. But it drives much more modern than it looks. I was really impressed with it. Anybody want to take a guess on the price?
Ooh,
oh, God! I was going to get this right too. What did you say? $243. I'm going to go with $1.
Go $1. See, that's the power move.
Trying it.
Well, Robbie wins again.
son of, I knew it. It's
But,
no, it's
but he's
really
not
like
even. But he's not even close.
I was saying when to be sarcastic. I really would say I was going to let's
How
say
much?
right, 353.
How much?
The 2022 Rolls-Royce Ghost Black Badge that I drove.
Yeah, outrageous.
The Black Badge package is $43,850.
Just the package.
So it's the cost of that CX-50 you just drove.
Just for the package.
The burnout gray paint on the exterior was $15,900.
Oh my God.
So
What up to
paid-
$58,000?
$2,575 for the pinstripe.
my
Which
God.
and this I forgot this was one nice interesting detail. It had a purple pinstripe down the length of the car.
Fancy, because the rest
then
of it isn't.
and then it also had like purple stitching on the inside. So you had gray, with purple contrast stitching. It was a really nice color combination. I really liked it. All in, this came to a grand total of $492,250.
oh my God, I was
$50.
so $500,000.
Yes,
$500,000.
just shy of a
Half
just
$500,000.
shy of $500,000. And
So I was
it's a good thing that I didn't look at the Monroney before I drove it up the mountain.
Right? Because then you'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, Lord, I don't want
Then-
to drive this thing.
You know, the website has some like really strong eyes wide shut vibes.
Yeah.
Like if you go to the website, just kind of scroll down a little bit. There's like a video, and it gets very like, yeah, You're like, oh, what's going on here?
What's happening?
You want to guess on the destination charge?
$5,300.
I'm just going to keep trying one of these days. $1.
Nicole wins.
Yay!
It's $27.50.
Okay.
$27.50. Oh, that's actually not as much as I thought.
I was
it
gonna
would
say
be,
2,500, but then I realized I should just double everything when I'm talking about this. Because if I had doubled my,
You would have been right.
I would have been right if I said 2,500. I blew it.
Yeah. And then $2,600 gas guzzler tax as well.
Oh, so I was right. $5,000.
Wait, is the gas guzzler tax more than the destination? It is. isn't
No,
it?
it's slightly less than the
slightly
destination.
less, okay.
Destination was $2,750,
Oh,
$2,600 for the
okay.
gas guzzler tax.
Oh.
So yeah, $492,000 for the Rolls-Royce Ghost Black Badge.
Which realistically, not a single person even considering buying that is actually looking at the price tag, so they don't care.
No. I mean, if you're considering a Rolls-Royce, if
You're just
if
buying it 'cause
it's something
you
that's
feel
even
like it.
remotely in the possibility of you owning, you just do it. You don't
Yeah.
you don't
like,
consider
honey,
the
I'm
price.
gonna go shopping. I bought a Rolls Royce. Okay, honey. See you
the
at dinner.
things that you're going to consider are what color do I want and what
Yes.
contrast stitching do I want.
You
And-
bespoke it all.
Yeah,
Put your
Yeah.
name
I mean, there's a
in
lot
the,
of bespoke stuff in this car.
get like Marvin the Martian like stitched into the seats.
There you go.
And now I want to see what kind of Rolls Royce you would configure, Robbie.
What happened?
So that is the Rolls-Royce Ghost Black Badge. So if you're looking for, some supremely luxurious, classic British motoring that you will be doing the driving as opposed to having your driver do it, this is the car for you.
This is the one to pick.
Yeah, this is absolutely the one to pick. So, Nicole.
Yes. I am ready now. I have a 22 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. Is what I've been driving around this week. And I have the color. It is electric lime metallic. It is so bright, guys. It is like a neon beacon of greenness in the
it's
parking
not.
lot.
It's not good. It's
A
right.
beacon of greenness. I
It
like
is
that.
a beacon of
Oh,
greenness.
gosh.
It is. Did you just
If you go
look
to
at
the
it?
site, you can see it is. It's
You aren't gonna miss it anywhere.
You know what? This is when you get lost in the woods. Because you got your Toyota Tacoma. You're maybe feeling a little like, hey, I'm an outdoorsy person now.
Yeah.
You go driving out off-roading for the first time. Probably don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You get stuck. Now you got to call, 911, or if you have like the new iPhone, will like do satellite and say, what
Yes.
am I looking for? Like, look for the bright.
The neon
Day
beacon
glow.
of greenness in the
Yeah.
depths of the forest. That is me.
That's me. So that's actually a good color.
So it's very green. So aside from the fact that it's
Certainly
like
is.
I need sunglasses before I can get into the car. So it's a Toyota Tacoma. The thing with the Tacoma is it's not looking fresh anymore inside. Like we're in the third gen, and I think this is like 7 years of this generation or something at this point. So they haven't done I mean, it's got little updates here, little updates there.
It's okay. You can say they haven't done anything.
They haven't really done anything. So
well, there's probably going to be a new Tacoma coming next year.
Yes. So let's hope, because it's not that it's bad. It's just starting to feel very dated, is what's happening, because it is. So it has under ye oldie hood. It has a 3.5 liter V6. With 278 horsepower, 265 pound-feet of torque. It's not a huge truck, so that's fine. It's not exactly an aggressive, off-the-line kind of vehicle, but that's fine. But also has a 6-speed automatic transmission that it does not do a good job of shifting smoothly, especially if you're driving up even remotely hilly roads. I took it this morning. It was pancake breakfast time. So we went out into the middle of nowhere to Parker's Maple Barn, which requires twisting roads that are up and down hills in New Hampshire. And it shifts harshly when you're going up and down hills, and it's not the smoothest ride. So that was my criticism of that, and that it's also kind of loud. It's not a quiet vehicle. Now, granted, this is the off-road version, the off-roadiest of them. But I don't think that that's like so that's like, the wheel noise that you hear a little bit more, and the ride is bouncier on road than it probably would be in other versions of the Tacoma. But it's not like this is going to be a smooth, comfy, let's go for a multi-day road trip kind of vehicle. I feel like if you're really into the off-road thing, like you really plan to do that, it's not just maybe kinda. Sure, go ahead and get the TRD Pro. But it just feels dated in so many ways. It makes me like, I think it's good. It was probably gooder a few years back.
Yeah.
It's just the dated. It feels dated.
You can get it with a manual transmission though, so you got that.
You can, and
the last Tacoma I had actually was a manual transmission.
But
and I drove it. I drove it with a manual a couple of years ago, maybe, and like. Same truck, just a couple years older, and I drove it with the manual transmission, and I was like, it was fine. I don't know that it made it any better. It's kind of a
sloppy manual, though. I mean, it's like one of those. It's one of those old school manuals where long throws and
while it's in gear, you can still move it a good 6 inches left and right while it's in gear.
Yeah, so it changes the criticisms, but it doesn't really. I don't know if it really criticizes. So it just changes the criticisms. Now we're criticizing the manual transmission. So again, it all has to do with it's just needing to be new. It needs a refresh. The other thing that I noticed, this is funny. So it's Thanksgiving week, technically it's Sunday. It's Thanksgiving week. My daughter's home from college with her boyfriend, who's over 6 feet tall, and I think he nearly gave himself a concussion twice sliding into the back seat because it's very low. Oh. So if you're tall, you hit that door frame. And then my husband did the same thing, getting in the front. I'm like, so it wasn't just that one of them was doing it. So it's just low enough that if you are that 6 foot plus crowd, you kind of have to duck a little. It's not for
and
tall
your whole
people.
life is ducking, by the way. I think people don't realize, like when you're tall, your whole life is like always in anticipation of smacking your head on something.
Yeah. See, Robbie, be careful if you get in Tacoma because you're going to give yourself a concussion.
Yeah.
So it was very low, but if okay, you're short. You don't care if your friends kill themselves when they try to sit into the car. Go for it if your friends are tall.
That'll teach them.
Right? Because it's the TRD Pro, it has all the extra TRD Pro logos. Like there's a hood decal and there's like embossed stuff on the seats. You get some extra bling for going with your TRD. And you also get some extra, I think it's got a little bit higher. It's got a suspension system that's geared for off-roading. It has some skid plates to keep you from destroying the bottom of it if you're hitting rocks and stuff. So it really genuinely is an off-road vehicle. It's a double cab, so it's a 4-door. So you do, like I said, you've got room for 5 technically in there, I guess, but not
There's
if you're tall.
5 sets of seatbelts.
Yeah, you've got 5 sets of seatbelts. Your mileage may vary. So I would say it's really for 4. And if you have if you're a tall guy, really pay attention before you buy this. Infotainment, you get an 8-inch touchscreen. You get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and this version with the automatic transmission only, I believe you get a JBL audio system. It changes up when you have different configurations. It's fine. It's fine. Not my favorite truck just because I feel like it feels dated. Like I feel like if I drove this 3 years ago, I would have been much more excited about it than I am right now. The other thing worth noting is, fuel economy. So according to my handy dandy Monroney, 18 city, 22 highway for 20 combined. Any guesses? I've been driving a pretty 50-50 mix of highway and country roads the last few days.
17.
16.
Sam wins because no, wait, neither of you do because you both went over, right?
Oh,
Isn't that
wow.
what happens
Yeah,
if you both
we're
go
both
over, right?
losers.
So you both lose. 14.9 is what I'm at.
14.9.
14.9 is what I'm at, and I'm like, wow, that's something.
That's bad.
It was, and I'm not driving aggressively, and it's just like 14.9, really? So,
It's
yeah.
because you have all those tall people weighing it down.
It's all the use, Robbie. You tall people cost me money and gas.
We have all these extra innards.
Yes, all that extra weight from your foot
extra
and
bones and muscles.
extra bones,
bones and muscle
and
guts.
all that. Yeah,
Small intestine.
So, I just weighs so much. Have you ever weighed a small intestine? You have no idea. So anyway, yeah. So the fuel economy is really not great. I mean, this is definitely not a long distance commuter car, road trippy kind of car. It's for somebody who's not putting on huge amounts of mileage on their vehicle or doesn't really mind the gas price, or really is focused on the off-road part of things. Because I think of it as like, it's great if it's just like you and your significant other and you like to run off and do off-roading on the weekends kind of thing. It's not for anybody who wants like a nice, comfy, modern truck. It's it's too dated.
To be fair to Toyota, the Ford Ranger and the Chevy Colorado don't get particularly great fuel economy either.
No, it's not like, well, it's not so much that it's getting bad fuel economy, but it's getting yucky fuel economy, and it's way below what it should be getting. And I'm not being aggressive. I'm like, how am I getting fuel economy that's that abysmal? But that's what I'm getting. So, yeah, it's small trucks, actually.
It's the TRD Pro. You have to be a professional. Like, you have to have a professional job where you make enough money to pay for gas.
Yes, exactly.
There you go.
If you're a TRD
that seems like a reasonable explanation.
No, if you're a TRD still in college, no.
I want to bring something up that my friend has been bringing up to me for years.
What?
How the TRD name is
Oh,
horrible
my God. Mm-hmm.
because it's turd.
Turd.
Yeah.
I almost said that rid of the Toyota Turd Pro. I'm like, oh.
I mean, for those that don't know, TRD actually stands for Toyota Racing Development, which is Toyota's in-house North American performance group.
But it doesn't say that. It says turd on the side of your truck. Oh, the other thing this was kind of
It
surprising.
could say tread.
I guess.
It says turd. Sam, it says turd.
Turd.
You're trying, but we're all reading it as turd.
We're all children. We're all reading
So we're all 12. Come on. So the price on this truck, it's $51,203. So not cheap. Okay, go for it with a delivery.
$995.
Oh,
Robbie?
$1. No, $1,200.
You win again. You're the closest with not going over, $12.15.
Yeah.
So $12.15. So here's the funny thing, and my daughter complained about this, and I actually thought, gosh, she's right when I looked at the price. So you have a power driver's seat, cool. You have a manual passenger seat. You get a $51,000 truck, and you got to manually adjust the passenger seat.
I can
Right?
understand that if you were paying like $40,000 maybe
Right, but I'm
or
like,
$30,000.
it's a $51,000 truck, and you only have a power driver's seat. Passengers, suck it up. You're going to have to scoop that thing back and forth.
It's all those
Yeah.
giant TRD stickers. Those are pricey.
So I thought that was an interesting choice. I'm like, really? Like, so are they really just thinking it's never going to have a passenger? It's just one guy out there, woohoo, having fun out in the forest on a weekend? I don't know. But yeah, so I felt like that was a lot of money for, like, you couldn't even give him like a 6-way adjustable passenger seat even. No.
Come on, just forward and back at least.
Yeah, just a little bit of power adjustability.
give me something.
None.
Yeah.
Nada.
Oh, well, that's
So I don't have a lot of love. I feel like I'm hating on the Tacoma. I just really genuinely feel like it's dated.
It is.
In just so many ways. That's what it comes down to. It is a perfectly fine truck. It's going to do the job. It's not a terrible truck. It's just that as other OEMs are releasing vehicles and updating them, and as they haven't yet updated the Tacoma, I think when the next gen comes out, probably all these things will change because it's a really popular truck and it's good in its own merits. It's just very dated in a lot of ways right now.
Yeah, on a platform for 700 years though, because they know it'll keep selling.
That's true.
The other three vehicles in this segment, the Nissan Frontier was new last year.
Mm-hmm.
We've already seen the new generations of the Colorado Canyon and Ranger that should be hitting the road early part of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fairly confident that we'll see a new Tacoma by this time next year.
So maybe what I'm saying is hold for just a little bit if you really want a Tacoma. Hold that thought.
Unless you absolutely, really, desperately need and want the current generation Tacoma.
Yes, and don't think that you'll
wait for
cry
the new one.
when you see the new generation and think, if I just waited one more year, look what I could have had.
I'm fairly confident in saying that the new generation Tacoma will have a larger grille. So
Yeah.
if you don't want a larger grille, then you might want to go for the current one. But otherwise, wait.
If that's all you're concerned about, then go with the current one. If anything else matters to you, no. If any other thing about the truck is important to you other than the grill.
Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
Between client meetings, managing your business, and everyday tasks, who has time to worry about website hosting? With Kinsta's managed WordPress hosting, you don't have to. They handle the technical stuff, delivering lightning-fast load times, enterprise-grade security, and 24/7 365 human-only support. Simply switching to Kinsta could make your site up to 200% faster. Kinsta's custom dashboard makes managing sites easy, with powerful features designed to save you time and effort. Plus, their free expert-led migrations ensure a smooth transition. Ready to see why Kinsta is trusted by thousands of businesses? Get your first month free at kinsta.com. That's KINSTA.com. Kinsta, simply better hosting.
One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Geico makes it easy to get affordable renter's insurance in as little as 90 seconds. That way, you have more energy for harder things, Like the laundry. Why is it so difficult to fold clothes? They just end up wrinkly anyway, or on the floor in a pile that just sits there, taunting you. But with renter's insurance through Geico, at least you know that those clothes and the other things you love are covered. Get more with Geico.
Sprinter van. So last week? Yeah, sure, that sounds about right. I flew all the way to Germany. Recently.
Yeah, recently.
Previously on Robbie's Life in the Sky, I didn't drive just there. I flew all the way to Germany to drive the new Sprinter diesel van. And previously, if you wanted, all four tires turning at the same time, you get the 4x4 Sprinter, which was a 4x4. So, you had to shift into low gear, and whenever you hit the little button, it made that clank.
So a real four-wheel drive as opposed to an all-wheel drive.
Yeah, it was clonk, and then you in the gear, and rah, rah, rah. And of course you didn't know when.
You're all about the sound effects today. Okay, go ahead.
I'm living the dream over here. So the new Sprinter is now an all-wheel drive vehicle. So it's just all-wheel drive all the time. You don't have to worry about this. This isn't you don't have to slam it into four-wheel drive low. You don't have to worry about is this when I should have it in four-wheel drive, or this is when I shouldn't have it in four-wheel drive. So that's nice. And I drove it for 30 minutes on the street. It's got a new four-cylinder engine as opposed to the V6 that it had before. It's got a turbocharged four-cylinder diesel, and it drove really nice. It was quieter. There was less vibration. It was just a much, it has a little bit more low-end torque, which is always when you're like, oh, it's going to a smaller engine. No, this is all better. Everything about the smaller engine in this vehicle is better. And so I was impressed with the diesel, that four-cylinder diesel. The gas version, which I did not drive, is also moving to a four-cylinder. But yeah, moving it over to all-wheel drive is definitely the right thing to do, really. I mean, it's...
So you flew all the way from California to Germany to drive this thing for 30 minutes?
So what happened was we get there, and we were supposed to do this this off-road course. That was the thrust of the thing. And then we got there, and lo and behold, it rains in Germany in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So the track...
In there.
The track that they had for us, it had rained too much. It's really a motorcycle track, so it was just full of rocks. They just couldn't do it. And they didn't outfit it with off-road tires. It just had some winter tires, some van-rated winter tires that you could drive on some snow and drive on. And so what happens is when you have a very heavy, tall vehicle, going forward, and this is again why when people say, well, it's all-wheel drive, it's going to be fine. So you can go straight and back with all-wheel drive, no problem. But as soon as you turn or you're on some sort of slope that's perpendicular to what the vehicle is, you're going to slide. Yep. So if your vehicle is going straight, but the slope you're on is at a 45 degree, you're going to slide sideways at 45 degrees. So
been there, done that.
Uh-huh.
So the off-road portion was more just driving up a little hill and then doing a U-turn in a very, very slick, muddy thing where if you turn the wheel, the car would kind of slide. You get some sweet understeer. And of course it did slide a little bit perpendicular to the road because it was on a little bit of a thing. And then we went down a hill and we used the descent mode, so you just let your foot off the gas and it'll go down at I think it was 12 kilometers an hour is top speed, which is nice because when you put the brakes on, you're sliding, you're like, oh god, I don't know what to do. You can just throw in, you throw it in descent mode and it takes care of the all-wheel drive system is figuring out what to brake and what not to brake. So that's what I ended up doing, which was not an all-wheel. So what should have been a much more robust all-wheel off-road experience was less robust.
was less.
But if you've driven the Sprinter before, unfortunately I had driven the Sprinter before, you can just tell right off the bat, just like driving it around. It is a much better vehicle. And the reason I'm talking about the Sprinter, because most of these are sold to fleets, is because more and more, especially since the pandemic, people are buying Sprinters and outfitting them. And they are making them into these either, people like Winnebago or Airstream or whoever, that, we can just buy.
Overland.
You can overland with it, or people are just buying an empty cargo van and then, taking it to a friend or to a company or, some local place, or doing it themselves and creating these sort of magical off-road camping machines, which, with the tall body, I can stand inside of a Sprinter and walk back and forth without smacking my head, which makes me very happy. Anytime.
Yeah. Well, when we were in California on vacation, we saw a lot of those.
They're all over the place up here.
Yeah.
It's Northern California, Southern California. They're silly with Sprinters. It's silly with
sprinters.
And a lot of them are the 4x4s.
We saw a lot of them in Palm Springs too.
Yeah,
Palm Springs.
Silly with Sprinters. We love them. We love them. When I had a Sprinter and I went to a Lucid event, like a pre-production. They were driving it around Laguna Seca, and I went there to talk to all the engineers. This is a mule. It was before the Sapphire. It was the tri-motor, Lucid Air, and they all stopped what they were doing to go look at the Sprinter that I had driven down to, and it was just a big cargo van. There was nothing inside of it, but they were just like, "Oh, we could do this and this." They were all very excited about what they could do with their Sprinter, and then later on, Lucid has, they have trucks that'll, like service trucks, and guess what they are?
Sprinters.
Yeah,
when they came to replace my flat tire a couple of weeks ago, that's what the guy came in. He came in a Sprinter with Lucid logos on the side.
So I think this was a smart move by Mercedes. They could have very easily just kept it the V6. They get very could have left it the 4x4 model, but they made that turbocharged four cylinder is very smooth. It's much quieter. It's a much nicer ride. And then making it an all-wheel drive system is just sort of gets rid of all that sort of like people having to figure out when to put it in four-wheel drive, when not to put it in four-wheel drive. Can I do it now? What if I'm driving on the road and it's snowy and I'm doing 40? Can I be in four-wheel drive? All that's gone. All that sort of like trying to figure out what you can and can't do with your Sprinter is gone. It's all-wheel drive all the time. It has torque vectoring using the brakes, so it's.
And they're going to sell that diesel version here in North America?
Then they will, and it's on sale now.
Oh, wow.
Like you can go out and buy a diesel. The gas version will be out later on. It's only rear-wheel drive if you get gas, though. So if you want all-wheel drive, you got to go diesel. So, it was a very... it wasn't as exciting as I had hoped. But fortunately, the road portion of the drive... was, and we're driving through like Germany, which is like, hey, big German cities, and then teeny tiny little weird German towns. Where you're just like, I got to drive through this small little road because all the roads were built for like carriages 7,000 years ago.
Things. Yeah.
And like the Huns or something. I don't know.
The Huns.
So
they never foresaw the Sprinter van.
They never foresaw.
What's the starting price on this?
So the starting price is now they gave me like three different smart. Let's just say around 45,000.
Okay.
Between 45 and 50,000. If you're getting the all-wheel drive version, though, it's going to pop it up to like 60.
Ooh.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah. So it's 11,500 for the shorter wheelbase. No, it's 12,550 for the shorter wheelbase and 11,550 for the 170 wheelbase, which is probably the one that's going to. Most people are going to get the 170 millimeter wheelbase. Centimeter?
Cool.
Whatever. Anyway, the larger inch. It's inch. Sorry, I was in Germany, so I'm just like,
170 millimeters would be.
It's like 3 feet.
That'd be like a Hot Wheels Sprinter.
The Hot Wheels Sprinter.
Here's a 3 foot.
You definitely wouldn't fit in that one, Robbie.
I would not fit in that one. But I mean, people are just throwing the money at these things, so I think it's if it's better for the fleets because it's going to have better. It's better gas mileage. You throw a smaller engine in there. But I think it's better for the customers as well. The straight to regular folks who are just going bonkers, throwing surf gear and kayaks and just anything you can think of on top of a Sprinter. They're everywhere.
All
They're
the things.
everywhere. And I kept saying it, and I think people who aren't in California may have... is it not everywhere else? Is it just a California thing? Have you guys seen a lot of Sprinters, like, just outfitted like...
It's mostly a California thing.
I think it's a California thing, because here when I see them, they're a work vehicle of some kind. Yeah, absolutely.
I have seen some, like this summer when I went up to Traverse City, in northern Michigan. I did see some up there. But around here, you don't really see them outfitted that way very much.
Okay, because I was saying that a lot, and some people who aren't from California were looking at me like I was a crazy man. I'm like, there's like one on my block.
Yeah.
There's two. There's two on my block.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially over the last couple of years, a lot of people, that were working remotely, got into the whole van life thing, got these overlanding Sprinters and Transits and other similar stuff, and got them outfitted and, hit the road. Some of them now, people are putting Starlink dishes on the roof, so they can,
cool.
As long as they don't work for Twitter,
Yeah,
they'll be all set.
They'll be all set. Yeah, go back in the office. I have a whole thing about like Facebook and Twitter saying like you can't get paid the same amount if you move to another town. I'm like, that's not fair, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
If you're making Facebook money, if I move to Des Moines, Iowa, I should still be allowed to make the same amount of Facebook money. But that's
well, to be fair, most of those people. A lot of companies have a policy of, if you live in a high cost of living area, they basically pay you more to offset that.
Correct.
So, it's always been the policy, depending on where you live.
Your pay rate has always been based on where you live. You'll make more for the same job in LA or or like New York City than you will in outer Japip. So I think that's what companies are at. Like, we paid you more because your rent was outrageous. Now your rent is a dime. So, yeah, that's always been a thing.
But the value of your work hasn't been diminished by being in a different
but your
spot.
Compensation based on... go ahead.
Yeah.
Next.
Anyway.
Enough of that. All right. So let's talk about what happened in L.A. this week. Nicole, you were the only one of the three of us that actually kind of went to the L.A. Auto Show.
Kinda.
I did.
Kind of went.
Kind of went. I did actually go to the LA Auto Show. So here's the thing. There was no really big news, which I think has pretty much been the state of the state.
There was one pretty big piece of news.
What was the pretty big piece of news?
Fiat's bringing the 500e back to North America.
That qualifies as the big news. Okay.
Well, there was the Genesis.
But no, I did have something. So the Fiat 500e, which I do actually think is pretty cool. They're bringing it back. And there are three little, they have a Giorgio Armani one, a Bulgari one, and one from a company called Cartel. Kartell,
which is apparently another fashion company.
I didn't realize this. So when I first was looking this up, it looks like all I can think of is cocaine. Like it's a cartel. So
all I can think of is cocaine. It looks like cocaine.
I expect it to be. I'm like, so is this version of the car when you pull up the carpet, there's additional storage? Wink, wink. Like, wink. What are you hiding in the cartel car? Like, but then
it's a few kilos lighter than the other cars, so that you can, you hit parity after.
All those bricks for the EV. One of those brick spots is empty. Wink. But yeah, it's just like. The name was, so I now know that there's another, luxury brand that I was unaware of, but it's actually really cool in person. It's like purple. It's really kind of funky, but you can only get them. It's an auction, so you can only get them if you auction them off.
Oh.
So you can't
there's only going to be the three of them.
The three, so you can't actually just buy it. So I guess that was big news. What was Genesis? They won the Motor Trend.
They won the car of the year
for
the
Trend,
G90.
Yeah. So that was a big deal. Hyundai had the Ioniq 6 there to look at. And actually, Roberto, I know we can't say anything about it yet. Did you drive it at World Car?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So we can't say what we thought, but we both drove it, but we can say what we thought about what it looked like. You can't just give any drive impressions. So it actually looks really stunning. It builds on the 5, but it gets a little fancier and it has some kind of cool materials and textures and stuff. So that was there. What else was, this tells you the epitome of the LA Auto Show. I'm literally like, I don't know, nothing really was super exciting.
Before we get into the other stuff from LA, the Ioniq 6, it was first shown in South Korea several months ago. Mm-hmm. And they did release some details about the North American spec version. Like, for example, it's going to have the same battery that's in the Ioniq 5. But because it's a sedan, it's a little lower, a little more aerodynamic than the Ioniq 5. It's going to have better range. It's going to have up to 340 miles of range for the rear-wheel drive version, which is pretty impressive for this thing. Well, I guess I don't know if you can talk about what it was like inside.
I can't talk about what it was like to drive it. They said drive impressions.
Okay.
So in terms of everything else, we were allowed to talk about it. So it was inside. It still continues that sort of Ioniq 5 thing with a little pixel design all over the place, which is actually really slick looking. And it does. It still has that roominess. It still, has the same level of quality, I guess I would say, that the Ioniq 5 had. It sort of just almost feels like, okay, the next iteration in terms of the style and design. It's not a dramatic change, but it is a little bit, okay, we're moving on a theme here, and we're moving forward with that. But I liked how it looked. I like how the 5 looks. So the fact that I think that the 6 looks good is no surprise. And some of the neatest stuff, though, is on the outside of this car. Like the antenna, the little wing antenna on the roof. It's
the shark fin.
The shark fin antenna, you can see through it.
Oh yeah.
So when you go up close and you look, it's not like it's completely clear. It's sort of like a smoky kind of thing. So from a distance, you think it's just you can't see. You get up close and you can see the electronic components inside of it, which is pretty cool. It was pretty neat. And the way that they have the sort of that pixel light design throughout the back, it's really pretty. It's got some neat character to it. Like when you walk up to it, we were in a parking garage where we were taking the cars from for World Cars, so it was darker. So you really got to see how the lights looked. It looks good inside and out. It looks very good, and the materials quality is really good, which is no surprise because that's
Hyundai.
sort of typical of Hyundai. You don't generally get a plastic fantastic Hyundai for the most part. So so that was the Ioniq 6, and when we're allowed to talk about it, which I think isn't for months and months, actually.
March?
I will talk about it.
Did they say when it's going to go on sale here?
I believe they had said March. Is that what you thought, Robbie?
No, I think the embargo is March.
Yeah, the embargo's.
Really?
Yeah, it's like literally months, but I think it's supposed to be on sale by March. I think that's why. I think March is when the official first drives, and it's going to be on sale, and everything lives. We don't even have a date. It was just like March. Hold your thoughts, kind of thing. Don't say anything about drive impressions.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, there was actually another car, something all new, that was announced in conjunction with the LA Auto Show. It wasn't actually announced at the show floor. It was the night before.
Yes.
And that is the Toyota Prius. Nicole, you and I saw it back in June at Toyota Palooza in Plano. We got an early preview look at it, and I don't know about you, but I was kind of shocked when I saw it back in June. When they took the silk off of it back then, I did not think it was a Prius.
Yeah, we all had that moment because the way they did it was and they do this sometimes, the OEMs, they're going to show you something that's so secret. They put tape over your phones or put a little over the camera
We had to put them in bags.
Or put them in a little bag. And even if it's like your laptop,
bags.
They'll put a thing over your laptop so your laptop or your iPad, nothing can take a picture or record anything of anything. So they do this sometimes when things are really in advance and they really want to keep it under wraps until their official reveal. So we saw it. I remember pulling the sheet off in my little group that went in there when they did it. We all were like, what is this? What new car is this? And it's like, oh my God, that's the Prius. It was that different. We didn't know what we were looking at for a second.
Yeah, this is the 5th generation of the Prius, and I would argue that it's the first one that's actually attractive.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
It no longer has that the Prius, through its little iterations, has always had this very distinctive rear end that is not attractive, especially in the most recent version. At least I don't like it.
No.
And they've lost that. It's gone. Now the Prius just looks like a nice, attractive sedan instead of this weird making a hybrid. Because I guess it made sense once upon a time because once upon a time it was the hybrid. It was a Prius.
Literally the hybrid.
It was the
only
hybrid.
one.
So it looked different because
You could
it
get
was
an
the
inside.
hybrid. Yeah, and you could get a Honda Civic for a short time too, but if
But
you're
is
going
the-
for a hybrid,
yeah.
it was the one, right? So it looked different because it was an entirely different animal in the automotive landscape, right? Now there's a bazillion hybrids and plug-in
And Toyota
hybrids
sells
and
most of them.
EVs. Right. So to make it look like, hey, this is the Prius, well, just make it look good. You don't need to scream that it's it's no longer unique for being a hybrid. So make it look good.
Yeah.
They could have made it look good before.
They could have, but they were still keeping this like Priusness.
Whatever. We can do whatever we want.
We're Toyota. To heck with you people. I like how the new one looks. I think it looks such a vast improvement.
Yeah. I guess, the question I have, is does Toyota even still need a Prius? For a while there, a decade ago, they were trying to create a Prius family, a sub-brand within the brand. They had the standard Prius. They had the Prius plug-in hybrid, the first-gen Prius plug-in hybrid. They had the Prius C, the Prius V, because Prius was the brand that was associated with hybrids. Mm-hmm. And, then all of those except for the standard Prius and the Prime, eventually went away. Last year, I think Toyota sold something like 65,000 Priuses, which is about half the number of RAV4 hybrids that they sold.
Wow. Is it really? The difference is that
it was
big?
It was over 120,000 RAV4 hybrids last year. So the question is, at this stage, does Toyota even need a Prius? What do you think?
I don't think they need a Prius, but it's still selling 65,000 units a year. There's still a market for it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I guess they have to find that tipping point where it just doesn't make sense to make it anymore. There's still people who, even when it was a fugly little thing, obviously loved the Prius. There's people who still want a Prius. So I think until that, do they need it? No, they have other vehicles in their lineup, but there's still people who like the name and who want a Prius, and they want that, I have the Prius. It has, I think until that disappears and until sales hit a certain point where it's just not worth it anymore, why not keep making it?
I mean, Toyota's going to fill every single market crevice with their vehicles. I mean, they have 53 SUVs. They have they have the Toyota Cross. They have the RAV4. They have the RAV4 Plus, which is the Venza. They have, the Prius is just, it fits in between the Corolla and the Camry. Or maybe it's above the Camry. Who knows? It doesn't matter because they're going to fill in every
last conceivable slot.
It's actually the same size as a Corolla.
Yeah, but it's higher up. It's higher up if you look at for them. It's like saying the Venza is the same size as the RAV4. Yeah, but the Venza is a little bit better. That's the Prius. Yeah. The Prius is a little bit better than the Corolla, but not nearly as fancy as the Camry, I guess. I mean, if you look at the interior, they still have that same squishy seat because they know people who drive in Priuses are driving, they're all Uber drivers and they're going 700 miles a day.
Right. They just want a comfy seat.
They just need a comfy seat.
They did make this one significantly more powerful. The new 5th-gen hybrid powertrain is now up to 196 horsepower in the standard Prius. And then the new Prius Prime is 220 horsepower. For the standard Prius, they're projecting 56 miles per gallon combined, which is, I think the current one's about 54, 55. So it's a little bit better. And then the Prius Prime, they're saying 50% more electric range. So the Prime is the plug-in hybrid. They're not giving a specific number for range yet, but 50% more than the current 27 puts it somewhere around 38 to 40 miles of electric range, which would be slightly less than the RAV4 Prime. But they haven't said what size the battery is, so I'm guessing the battery might be a little bit smaller than the one in the RAV. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an attractive car. It'll be interesting to. It's something that I look at this and it's like I don't suddenly want to shirk away from it because it's so hideous. The current generation, especially the Prime, is just it's bad. It's really bad. And I like this car. I really do like it.
The marketing with Prius, the badge, the name is just super powerful. I mean,
that's just it.
You just can't drop it because you have everything and everything. I think is what Toyota's looking at. You're like, we have this powerful name. Let's make a pretty car this time, and let's keep it going. Let's just keep the train going. The Prius is like, let's do it this time.
There's so many people who, because you think we, us and a lot of our listeners are probably more car people, obviously, and know all the very many options that are out there when it comes to hybrid vehicles and have an idea of what's what and what's good and what's bad and what what you get in the various sedans. But if you're not that person, if you're not a car person, you're just like, I just want a really good, I want a hybrid. The first thing that still comes to most people's minds is a Prius. I'm going to go buy a Prius. I don't think about it. I'm just going to go buy a Prius,
Yeah. No, definitely. One thing I do like is it finally has the instrument cluster directly in front of the driver where it belongs, instead of having this narrow slit across the top of the middle of the dashboard.
I don't.
You like it, but you don't like it, Robbie?
No, I like it. They put it there finally, where it belongs, because that's how your brain works.
Where God intended.
There was like a study about never mind, it doesn't matter. Anyway, dash clusters should be where dash clusters are supposed to be in your. So you just have to slightly look down, and you can keep driving, not over in some weird corner. Stop trying to be fancy. It's not helping anybody. If anything, you're making things worse.
And there will be an all-wheel drive version with electric drive on the rear axle, as there is with the current generation. So that's good. 0 to 60 time with the all-wheel drive would be down to 7 seconds.
Ooh.
Which is significant improvement over the old one, which was 9.8 seconds.
Well, it was so ugly, it was scaring the air, and the air would try to stop it.
No, go away.
All right. So that's the Prius.
Good job, Toyota.
Yeah.
Just throw some of that magic on the Tacoma, and Nicole will be happy.
Exactly, and then I'll say nicer things about the Tacoma. Sorry, Toyota.
No, don't apologize to Toyota. They know what they're doing. They're making money.
They're still making money hand over fist.
They're fine. Toyota's fine.
And even though Prius sales in North America have declined significantly, they still sell a lot of them globally.
Still a lot of vehicles,
a lot of them in Japan, and some in Europe as well. So, all right. The other thing that was shown off the night before, at about the same time as the Prius, was the Genesis X concept. Did you happen to go to the Genesis X event?
I did not. I went to a swanky dinner instead, so I did not get to. I'll tell you honestly why I didn't make it. But I did see the images. Did you end up going to that, Robbie, at all?
I was in Germany doing a thing I'm not allowed to talk about.
Oh, that's right. Well, I did see. There's a million pictures. I love how it looks on the outside.
Yeah, it's fabulous looking. Yeah. So this is for those that haven't seen it. It is a big 4-seat luxury convertible that is
a hardtop
also electric.
Convertible. Yeah.
Oh yeah, hardtop convertible, and it's electric. So, they haven't really given any indication of whether they'll build something like this, but I think this would make a great flagship for the Genesis brand. We'll see. Hopefully they do build something like this.
It still has the crystal sphere for the little rotatable
from the GV60.
Yeah, they have a little GIF of it, whatever of it floating around on the center console there. It's slick looking. I like it.
Yeah.
No, I think this is a really good looking vehicle. I just, the thing is, you see the concepts like this that are so beautiful. Like, this is beautiful. You just look at the exterior design of this car. It's really beautiful. It's a stunning vehicle. And I want him to build it just like this.
Just do
this. And they
this.
never do. They never do. Like, they will come, well, this is based on, like, you ever have one of those where, there's the concept car that you fell in love with and you so wanted to see for real one day. And like, oh, this is the vehicle we based off of it. And you're like, you showed me a 2-seater roadster, and this is a heavy-duty pickup truck. How is this based on what you showed me a year ago? Like, they
both have 4 wheels.
Yeah, right. The 4 wheels are the same. They feel
doors.
like they stray so far from the concepts, and the concepts because they have a little more, because they're concepts. They're not necessarily going to be built. They have the flexibility to do things they just can't do in the real world, either because the design doesn't stand up to safety testing, or the interior has components that are just ridiculously expensive that don't make sense. I want him to build it just like this because this is so pretty. Please, Genesis, build it just like this.
Don't change a thing.
Don't change a single thing. Not
They'll
one.
have to add headlights, but other than that.
No, it's got headlights.
It has lights. If you look,
there's those twin horizontal strips.
Which I'm betting by some law in the U.S. is illegal, and they can't do them, right? So that would be the first thing.
No, I mean, this is actually not all that different from the headlights that are on the G90.
So then Genesis has to build it this way. Genesis, do not let me down. Build this exactly like it is. I'm looking at this beautiful picture on your website of this sexy looking hardtop convertible. Build it just like this. Thank you.
The world needs more convertibles that are also electric.
Yes.
And
Don't even get me started on how much I've been waiting for a damn. I did an entire interview with the president of Mini US. Our CEO. It doesn't matter.
A guy at Mini.
A very important man at Mini.
The person that runs Mini for North America.
For North America. Oh, because for one question, will we see an electric Mini convertible? Yes, we will. That's it. That's all I cared about. I mean, there was other things.
And what did he say?
He said
did he say yes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You can read about it all. You can read all about it on TechCrunch. And that was from last year's LA Auto Show. But that's all. I'm like, okay, good. And there was other questions I had to ask him because
But they were irrelevant.
But they were irrelevant. I don't even remember what I wrote about. Oh, he talked about like there was supposed to be a smaller mini vehicle than what they have on the road today. That was another thing he said that they might do. Which I was like, was that a bike? Is it a little car? Is it a little? So we'll see what happens. But
cool.
All I cared about was the convertible.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. The other big piece of news out of LA was the return of the Fiat 500e. When Fiat or Stellantis discontinued, actually it was still Fiat Chrysler at the time, they discontinued the 500e, the old 500e in 2019 with the rest of the 500 lineup except for, in fact, they discontinued all the Fiats except for the 500X. And now they're bringing the 500e back to North America in early 2024. They haven't given us much detail yet, but the new generation 500e, which shockingly is actually not bigger than the old 500, it's basically the same size, but now it has, in Europe at least, it has two battery options: a 24 kilowatt hour battery like the one we had here, and a 42 kilowatt hour battery that gives, on the WLTP drive cycle in Europe, it's 199 miles. Here it'll probably be, on EPA, it'll probably be somewhere between 140 and 150 miles, which is almost double what you had for the 84 miles on the old 500e. But despite the mediocre range, the 500e, I always thought, was actually the best 500 to drive.
It's the best Fiat, just hands down. The Fiat 500e is the best Fiat.
And it will be the only Fiat we have here. Because the 500X
now
is
by
going
default.
Away. Yeah.
It will be the best because.
I did talk with Larry Dominique, who is the head of both Alfa Romeo and Fiat brands for North America, the other day, and we'll drop that in here. But and he explains the reasoning behind it, behind why they're bringing the 500e back to North America, because they don't expect, it's not going to be a big volume car, at best maybe 10,000 units a year, but and it won't be cheap, but they're using it to experiment with a bunch of stuff. What do you think about bringing the 500 back?
So we when my WRX exploded, the engine blew, we didn't have any money. So at the time you could get a Fiat 500 for like a nickel a month. So we leased the Fiat 500 for like $120 a month for 3 years, and it was fine. But it's like a disposable camera of a car. When they brought me the 500e one day, the fleet people, I was like, why am I driving that piece of junk gas version? when I could have been driving this. It is
Right?
it's night and day just how much better that vehicle is when you throw an electric drivetrain in there or a powertrain in there. I was just like, this is the best car. Our friends bought one. They bought one used, and they drive it around, and they love it.
Are you really jealous?
A little bit. There's something fun about it doesn't have a small electric car like the Mini SE, the 500e, because they sort of, those two vehicles I think of more so than the Mazda, really they keep the promise of what that car is supposed to be from that automaker. And when you do that, when you're like, okay, this is just going to be a fun little retro looking electric vehicle that you're just going to cruise around town, do some things, you're like, yeah, that's, and that's, you're getting exactly what you were expecting, and a little bit more. I think people are going to be surprised if they've ever driven a 500, how much better the 500e is, and if they haven't driven a 500, just how much fun that little thing is to drive around.
It is a fun little car. No, I've driven. I know of several people who actually own them and have since had gotten rid of them for whatever reason and still pine away about the fact that they don't have them anymore and are so excited it's coming back.
Yeah. I mean, it probably won't be cheap. I've heard that it might be as much as like $40,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you pay $40,000 for it, Roberto?
Well, I would pay $27,000 for a Mini SE. How's that?
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to drop in the interview I did with Larry here, and we'll be right back. All right. So, Larry, good to talk to you again. Very interesting announcement yesterday from Fiat, bringing back the 500e to the North American market. And, I personally, from the first generation, the 500e was actually my favorite variant of the 500. I thought it was the most fun to drive, despite its limited range. I thought it was actually the most engaging version. I preferred it even to the Abarth. But I guess the big question is, after discontinuing the 500, aside from the 500X, why is Stellantis bringing the 500e back to the North American market?
That's a great question, Sam. And it really comes down to the reality or the fact that Fiat is a brand that doesn't necessarily need to be here. It wants to be here. Meaning, today we sell the 500X. We mentioned that as the 500X sunsets, we're gonna just have the 500 in North America and the EV version only. Actually, we only have an EV version of the 500 globally. And the idea is, we look at the brand as an opportunity in North America to somewhat experiment. We know the customers are changing. We know the way they ingest everything from media, streaming services, the way they buy food, the way they go get food served for dinner. There's a revolution going on where people are changing the way they live, what their expectations are, how they ingest things. So we really want to look at Fiat as an opportunity that this vehicle, this amazing, highly crafted vehicle, is really a lifestyle choice. We're not coming out trying to be a mass market brand. We know it's a premium car. The idea is to come in and experiment with new lifestyles, new ways of ownership, new ways of buying cars, and put that in the marketplace where we can kind of experiment. And we wouldn't want to jump in doing something innovative or something different with a Jeep brand or a Dodge brand. It's easier to do that with Fiat, which, as Olivier Francois likes to say, I'm the number one volume brand in Stellantis at 1.4 million cars. Focusing primarily on Europe and South America. I don't need an extra 10,000 cars in North America. As a matter of fact, your audience may or may not know, but right now the 500 is the number 2 selling EV in Europe. It's even the number 1 selling EV in Germany, believe it or not. Number 2 in Spain, number 1 in Italy. So it's a vehicle that's already production constrained, but we've made the decision to bring them over here to really start to look at new ways of consumer ownership. So,
for example, well, I guess, what sorts of things would you be looking at? Things like subscriptions, deploying it through free to move car sharing services. What types of things are you planning to look at?
Exactly. We first started talking about if you do want to own it, it's we talk about it being a click, not a traditional kind of retail process. So we believe it's going to be kind of bipolar from an ownership point of view. We believe there's going to be multi-car households with large driveways, large garages that are going to want this for fun. This is for practicality. This is for something they can drive when they don't need the truck. They don't need the SUV. They can drive the 500. On the opposite side, we believe it's going to bring in a new generation of potential owners and users. And you're right. We are going to work hopefully with our Free to Move partners and deploying these in car sharing. And we think it's a great opportunity for people to get exposure to the car as well. Meaning if it's in LA, if it's in San Francisco, if it's in Washington, DC, and it's available on the road, to rent by the minute, rent by the hour, people are going to get exposure to it. And once they do, they're going to oh my God, this is amazing. And maybe it becomes a subscription. Maybe it becomes an ownership for them at the same time. So we are looking at subscription. We are looking at, in the future, does such a thing as a fractional ownership exist? Definitely car sharing is part of that equation. And then full ownership is there as well.
So a number of companies have experimented with various forms of car sharing and subscription over the last decade. And nobody's really managed to find a viable business model yet. So what do you think you can do differently this time to try to make it a sustainable business that can actually make money?
That's a great question. And actually, before the merger of PSA and Stellantis, I actually one of my roles was running the car sharing service we had in Washington, D.C. under Free to Move. And we were profitable. If you look at the other brands that were out there historically, Car2Go and a few others, they were in many cities and they were losing a lot of money. And I would just say, looking at the bread and butter tactics of running a business, we learned that with these depreciating assets, which are pretty expensive to start with, and they depreciate pretty rapidly, you really have to have an amazingly efficient cost structure supporting that car sharing service, and make sure you're getting the right marketing and the right engagement with consumers to get the right utilization rate. Because if you don't get the right utilization rate with the right cost structure, it's not a successful business. We were successful and profitable in Washington. We rolled it out in New York. We're now planning with Free to Move. We're looking at 30 cities. On a global basis, we bought ShareNow about 6 months ago, the global ShareNow. So we are now the largest, free float car sharing company in the world. So we are deploying that very rapidly in North America. I think we're going to continue to be successful. So they're going to be a good partner for ours. But we also, are looking with Free to Move and our dealer network. Is there an opportunity to do daily rentals, or monthly rentals, through our dealers? There's a fine line in some states between the definition of a subscription and a rental. So we're making sure we're managing within those guidelines. But we believe we want to offer a high level of flexibility to the customers.
Given that this is a small car, which would make a great urban commuter, and presumably will have obviously better range than the first generation, but I'm guessing probably somewhere in the 140, 150 mile range EPA. Do you see potential for some sort of subscription service for customers or some sort of lease or buy program where they could have this as their main commuter vehicle, and then perhaps get access to other vehicles in the Stellantis lineup if they want to do a road trip, or somebody living in the Bay Area wants to go up to Tahoe for the weekend, maybe get a Grand Cherokee 4xe or something like that. Or
the answer is yes.
Like that.
The answer is yes. So the vehicle is optimized for city driving. As Olivier mentioned in the press conference yesterday, we're going to be focusing on those urban centers where we have to be hyper focused, because that's where the best performance, the best range, the best balance, the best parking is going to be relevant. But to that point, we do want to look at ownership models and usage models where if a customer does have a 500 and they do need something larger for the weekend for that trip up north or whatever it might be, that they might have access to those. So that's some of the exploration we're doing right now in the business model. Okay.
For looking at Free to Move, more broadly, you mentioned expanding it into 30 cities. Would do you also see do you want to keep it focused on the small cars like the 500e? And are there any plans to expand the deployment of the Citroen Ami, which I think you've had in DC, to other cities as well?
Yeah. So the answer is no. Our focus right now is going to be on the 500. That is going to be the brand at this point in time. Are we against looking at variations of that, Abarth or Cabrio or whatever it might be? We're still saying that might be a possibility in the future, but we're not trying to get to 70, 80, 100,000 cars. We're trying to focus. We're trying to learn. And we would rather be successful with an incremental marginal business than trying to build a big business case, which requires you to sell a lot of vehicles with a lot of turnover to be profitable. So Olivier has not been shy. This is not an inexpensive car. Mm-hmm. It's a premium car. But as we showed you yesterday with the three versions, the Armani, the Cartel, and the Vulgari, it's about craftsmanship. It's about quality. This vehicle drives around with L2 plus technology from an auto's point of view. So it has all the safety features, all the active safety, all the passive safety, high level of craftsmanship, amazing level of quality of materials in the car. So it is a premium car. And we know that that's not for everybody. This is why we want to be hyper-focused. And we know it's going to be a vehicle for a certain audience because the A/B segment's always been niche-y. Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to shy away from that reality. We're trying to focus within that to make sure we're being effective.
How big is the Fiat dealer network in North America today? And where do you see it going, either larger or smaller in the coming years?
Yeah, so we have 357 dealers in the US and about 120 in Canada. Obviously, networks ebb and flow. So right now, if you look at our current sales, we don't have a lot of throughput on a per dealer point of view. But there is a good UIO out there today. So we don't really have an objective related to network size. So we're going to put this vehicle in market. We're going to identify what it's for. And there are going to be certain regions of the country that embrace and engage with it. There's going to be other areas that it's not necessarily the right vehicle with the right range for them. And that's fine as well. So it'll be a dynamic network interaction. But once we get the vehicle in play, then we'll have a better sense.
You mentioned the three concepts that were shown in LA. Are those intended for production in limited volume?
No, those were truly one-offs that were done in connection with Armani, Cartel, and Vulgari to show what's possible. Fiat has an amazing history of working with brands. I think the Gucci model globally, they wanted 5,000 units. They sold out in like a week. They had to go back to Gucci and get them to agree to another 5,000. They ended up selling 10,000 of them. And they sold them out within a couple of weeks. So the brand's always been innovative. It's always a brand that from fashion and I'd call a luxury and fashion industry, there's been a tremendous amount of interest in the brand. Olivier gets contacts all the time with people that want to partner with Fiat. So those three vehicles were this idea of sustainable luxury, sustainable design, and sustainable luxury. So when we look at those three characteristics, that was to show you what's possible. But I think what you will see us, one of the ways we want to think about the market, Sam, is we're going to have the 500, but you're going to periodically see special versions coming in limited edition. And it could be a Gucci, Vulgari, it could be whatever. But as the brand evolves, we're going to continue to do this in very limited quantity because, first of all, it adds excitement. It adds energy to the brand, and scarcity with these amazing partnerships are highly desirable for people. So we're going to continue to do that.
So, right now in Europe, Fiat has a fairly limited number of nameplates that it offers. You've got the Tipo, the Panda, the 500L, and the X, and the Doblo. Do you see if the 500E proves to be successful, do you see an opportunity to expand the Fiat brand in North America beyond the 500?
Right now, we have no plan to do that. But in this industry, you never say never. The world changes as time goes by. Consumer needs and expectations change over time. So we would never say never. But at this point in time, we're going to focus on the 500. We're focusing on experimentation. We're focusing on trying to do things a little bit differently to see what the future consumers are looking for. And then depending on the success of the 500, we may end up deploying some of those ideas to our other sister brands within Stellantis.
Okay. Yeah. Famously, when the original 500E was launched, late Mr. Marchioni, encouraged people not to buy it because they lost so much money on it. It sounds like, this time around, between the combination of positioning it as a more premium vehicle and the march of progress with the electrification technology, even at a relatively low volume, it sounds like you're looking at this being a pretty viable business going forward, in addition to being a basis for experimentation.
Yeah. So the way we look at it, so you have to also understand that the original 500E was an ICE platform that was derived into a battery electric platform.
Compliance car.
It becomes a compromise in range, a compromise in design, a compromise in many factors to that. And one of those compromises is cost as well. The new 500 was designed from the ground up as a battery electric vehicle, BEV platform. As we said, the plant in Mirafiori is building about 100,000, give or take a little bit, vehicles today. Our incremental volume is marginal on top of their production. So we're not adding incremental factory costs. We're not adding incremental costs. We're actually making it more efficient because we're selling more. Mm-hmm. So yes, and it is a premium priced vehicle. So it's going to be priced. It's going to be volume. It's going to be incremental volume on top of the existing plant. That doesn't add a lot of cost for homologation. We've been able to optimize that. So, we work in Stellantis. We work with Mr. Tavares. We will be profitable.
And obviously, as an EV only, compared to when the original 500 was launched here, homologation in a lot of ways, certainly from, things like emissions and federalizing the powertrain is not really an issue this time around. So that should save you a lot there.
Correct. It's basically lights and body and white safety issues that you have to upgrade a little bit or modify a little bit. Just not that they're more or less, they're just different than Europe. So we have to do that.
So for North America, this is going to launch early 2024. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. We're going to right now the plan is US and Canada.
All right. Well, anything else with Fiat or the 500 that we should be thinking about going forward? That we haven't talked about.
Not too much. I mean, what I love about this car is I think what's going to be a real surprise to people, Sam, is the driving characteristics of the car. The vehicle is an amazing driving car, and I think people will be immensely surprised by driving it. And if you've driven the previous generation, it's not even comparable with the previous generation. It's just head and shoulders ahead of this. This is why it's the number 2 EV in Europe overall behind Tesla. And it's because it's such a good car. And I'm really looking forward to the media getting a chance to get behind the wheel to experience this car.
Well, I can't wait to try it out. Sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks for your time this morning, Larry. I know I don't know if you're in California right now or back here in Michigan, but
no, I'm in California. I'm used to the early mornings.
All right. Well, have a great day, and thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're back. Let's see. Anything else from LA that we didn't talk about that we should mention? New Subaru Impreza.
They lost, and the sedan is gone, isn't it?
Yeah, no sedan, no manual transmission anymore.
Yeah.
Just a CVT.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's move on then. One of the things in a lot of countries, especially in Europe, and even here, EVs have been exempt from paying certain taxes as part of the incentives, or EV owners have been exempt from paying certain taxes as part of the incentives to go electric. And here, for example, since you don't take an EV to a gas pump, you're not paying any gas taxes, and gas taxes are mostly what pay for the roads that we drive on. And so one of the challenges with going electric is we just have to figure out where we're going to get the money to pay for the roads. And a number of states and stuff here, have talked about or are starting to implement taxes on EVs, other types of taxes, and they're looking at restructuring, moving from a per gallon gas tax to a per mile, a VMT tax, a tax on for every mile you drive, you've got to pay some number of cents.
Oh, we've lost Sam.
No, I'm still here.
We pay in California. It's $175 more a year for registration.
For an EV?
For an EV?
Yeah, you pay more for an EV because we're not paying any gas tax. So I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're using the roads, you're putting wear and tear on the roads. So I think it's fair that EV owners should contribute to the cost of maintenance of those roads. So in the UK, they just announced that starting in 2025, EVs, which up until now have been exempt from the vehicle excise tax, will have to start paying that tax.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
At some point, it's not, we're not going to get, EVs won't have carpool access like they do now at some point. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're doing to get people to adopt, that as people adopt, we're like, all right, party's over. Let's, now you just have a car.
Yeah.
So it's just like everybody else. You got to pay your fair share.
All right. Last item. Tesla announced this week that they are changing the name of their Tesla charging connector, which I'm not sure. Did it actually have
Did it have a name? Wasn't it just Tesla charging connector?
Could be, yeah. Anyway, it's now going forward will be known as the North American Charging Standard.
Okay.
Because Tesla has decided that it's a standard. And
I was like, no one else has called it. We call it. Dibs.
Yeah.
American Charging Standard.
And they have put out the specs for it. They've open sourced it, which they've talked about doing in the past, or at least they've said that anybody else that wants to use it is free to use it, but no other automaker did because everybody went with the actual standard that they all agreed to through SAE, which is the combined charging standard. And Tesla wants everybody else to change to their connector instead of them changing to CCS.
I don't think that's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot more electric vehicles and plug-in vehicles on the road, a lot more models, not necessarily more unit sales, but a lot more models available that already have the CCS connector on there. And Tesla's already using CCS Type 2, which is the European version of it, in Europe. They've had to use it for several years now. But they don't want to change to CCS here. And in China, they have to use the Chinese standard, which I forget the name of it, but they have a standardized connector over there. They use that one in China. North America is the only place where they still use their proprietary connector. And they've decided, no, we don't want to change it. We want everybody else to change to ours.
I'm sure it's a tax issue.
You think it's a tax issue?
It's an IRA. It's a not. Is there an Inflation Reduction Act issue? Like if they don't get anyone else, they won't get more money.
No,
get some of that money.
I think it's actually the infrastructure bill, the money for building out charging infrastructure. The way the system, the way it's set up right now, anybody that wants to get money from that program has to use the CCS connector.
There you go. Money.
And Tesla doesn't want to change over all their chargers to CCS.
But I thought, didn't Elon just say that people that automakers shouldn't get subsidized by the government anymore? Ooh, how quickly I did.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there. So there's that. All right.
There's that.
We are going to lose Sam. My husband just bought me a cup of tea. Get your wife to bring you something to drink.
My wife is still somewhere between Joplin, Missouri and Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, that would be a little difficult then.
She and a friend of hers took a road trip this week, and they went to Austin for the week. So
nice.
So they're on their way back. My wife should be home tomorrow night, hopefully. It's I've had a cold all week. So.
Aw, your bachelor lifestyle has been cramped by having a cold. This is sad.
I know. It's just me and Daisy here. She's laying behind me on the floor. All right, let's answer some listener questions.
Okay.
Done.
And as I mentioned last time, I'm trying to migrate away from Twitter for this. So going forward, if you have listener questions, please send them to feedback@wheelbearings.media. There's a link on the wheelbearings.media site. You can still send them by Twitter. I'm not going to kill the Twitter account anytime yet, but eventually I want to migrate away from that. But we got some questions this week, some by email, some by Twitter. First up, from Evan Harris, says, probably nothing for the show, but I wonder how many people aren't going to buy Teslas due to what Elon is doing to Twitter. Tonight was the last straw. No more Teslas for me.
I know multiple people, and I know like hardcore Tesla fans who, before Twitter, weren't going to decided not to buy from. They're not going to buy their next vehicle. These are people. I know one person who's bought multiple Teslas who won't buy from Tesla anymore because they can't with Elon anymore.
But it had nothing to do with Twitter.
This one had nothing to do with Twitter. So I think I think more and more people are just finding out about Elon's inability to actually run a company and sort of cruelty to his employees, which people who've been covering Tesla for years know about. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not helping him. It's not going to help his company. I mean, he's going to do what Elon's going to do. And I'm sure he's made some fans, but he's probably losing more than he made. And then again,
I think for just as much as there's people who are saying like, I hate Elon, he bought Twitter, he's terrible, I'm not going to buy a Tesla. There's people like, hey, let's see what the heck he does. Maybe I'll buy a Tesla. Like I think there's a split. I think there's some people who will gravitate away, and some people who will say doesn't matter, and other people who might be like, woohoo, go you, and consider it that may not have before. It's going to go all over. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
There's definitely people who are going to like, well, he's people who don't quite understand how a social media network works, and they're like, oh, yeah, he's smart. I'm like,
Hashtag not a genius. All right. Dave Wengler asked, if I keep my cars for 10 years, I don't care much about resale, and only do 5,000 miles a year, does any kind of electrification actually make financial sense when considering initial cost, gas, and servicing?
Well, get a Leaf or something.
Man, you're making me do math, David.
What's the cheapest EV? Is it a Leaf? Isn't there a Leaf?
The Bolt. What kind of electrification makes financial sense when considering initial cost?
I mean, I would say, at the very least, a hybrid.
That might be a better call.
Yeah, a lot of the hybrids now, there's very minimal cost premium over gas version, and while at 5,000 miles a year,
but what if he does all 5,000 of those miles at once?
As one does.
There's a lot going on here.
So you're just going to do one transcontinental road trip a year?
Just drives out there, drives back the next year, drives out there, drives back the next year.
If you're driving like no miles, if you're driving like 20 miles a day, maybe. Yeah. If 5 days a week, you know what? You can get that mini SE. That's what I'm just saying. You're gonna have the most fun of anyone else in an EV with those 20 miles.
Or depending on where you live, what your weather's like, maybe an e-bike might be a better solution.
Yeah, maybe an e-bike.
Time for an e-bike, my friend.
Give yourself a couple,
there you go.
20 grand, 25, 30 grand. Get yourself an e-bike.
But
bus pass, maybe a nice bus pass.
Something like a Corolla hybrid or the Hyundai Elantra hybrid. They're pretty reasonably priced. Or Ford Maverick hybrid, 20 grand.
There you go.
20 grand, 40 miles per gallon.
So I wouldn't go out. If you're driving that little, and your vehicle's in good shape, I wouldn't go and buy another vehicle just to electrify. Keep what you've got, because there's certainly far less emissions involved with keeping what you have and driving it minimally than buying another new vehicle. But if the time has come that you do need to replace it, if you're 10 years is up on your car, there are some options, some hybrid options that are really good, or like a used Leaf. Or a used Bolt. Yeah. Used Bolt is actually probably a better idea than a used Leaf, because the liquid-cooled battery is probably going to be in better shape than a 10-year-old air-cooled Leaf battery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bren Barenshausen asked, does the Ioniq 5 still qualify for a federal rebate? Also, this new color for the 2023 Ioniq is the best one yet and should have been the flagship color from the start. Way better than the Cyber Gray. And I'll have to find the link and put that in there. I can't remember what the color was, but as far as the rebate goes, no, it's not built in North America, so it does not qualify. Only vehicles, since the IRA was signed into law, only vehicles that are assembled in North America qualify. So no more rebates on any of the Hyundais.
It has supercharged Hyundai's plans to build a factory here in the United States.
Yes.
But,
yeah,
they build all their EVs in Korea.
Yeah, Hyundai pulled ahead the start of construction, the groundbreaking on their new factory in Georgia by like 6 or 8 months. And they plan to have production going by the end of 2024 at that plant.
So new jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Jeff asked, what is the best EV charging app that is to find chargers and route planning?
I still like a better route planner. It still feels like it's designed by an engineer. So sometimes you're using it and you're like, what? Why is there's all these options? But if you're willing to, if you pay you can use it both on your computer and on the website and on your phone. So you just make an account. You don't have to pay for it if you just have a regular account. So you can put in like what route you want to do, and it'll show up on your phone. But if you want to work with like CarPlay or Android Auto, you're gonna have to pay the $5 or $4 a month for it. But
which is not much.
Yeah, I know. I used it to drive around California with the BMW i4. I don't know, a month ago, I don't even know what time is anymore, a while back. And now it was great. There's a couple of routes, there's a couple of times where I stopped before it, but I could see all the charging stations along my route. So it was helpful.
Yeah. And, some automakers have pretty decent charger location and routing built into their nav systems. Others, not so much. Talking to you, Hyundai and Kia. But as much as I love the Ioniq 5 and the EV6, and they know this, they're working on an update for that. But the ability to find chargers in their navigation system is not good. But better route planner is probably the best one. But you probably want to spend a little time with it before you head out on a road trip. Figure out how it works.
Yeah, don't just jump in the car and be like, hey, let me figure this out. It's like SOC, which is state of charge. So, in case you didn't know what SOC means. So you have to put in like your state of charge when you leave and what you want your state of charge to be when you get to where you're going. And it's all very built by an engineer.
So it'll all be very accurate, but also very complex.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Daniel Bowermaster had a couple of questions that he sent by email to feedback@wheelbearings.media. Longtime listener, first-time caller. And I know John Volker quite well through work. John
is a good guy.
Good friend of ours.
He's a good egg. Yep.
Anyway, love the show. Thanks for doing it. It'd be great to get your thoughts on two unrelated questions. Number one, will excellent outward visibility ever come back? Or will the march of occupant-focused safety regs lead us to the outward visibility of an Army tank? Are there any safety regs that track number of accidents caused by thick A-pillars, high hoods, high belt lines, poor rear visibility, etc.?
I'm sure there's something. I'm sure there's something somewhere. High hoods don't. It doesn't.
Well,
I feel like I'm gonna yell about trucks for 10 minutes. So but trucks don't need to be like that. How's that? That's all I need to say about trucks.
Yeah, but, I mean, if you look at the stats, the fatality stats and injury stats for traffic crashes, the biggest increase we've had in the last 10 years has been vulnerable road users, pedestrians and cyclists. Mm-hmm. And that increase in fatalities of pedestrians and cyclists has directly corresponded with the increased proportion of SUVs and trucks on the road, which have much worse outward visibility. I mean, it's hard to, there aren't any regulations that track that directly, but, there's certainly a lot of correlation there. Not, obviously correlation does not indicate causation, but I think we can make a pretty decent argument that the inability to see out of these big SUVs and trucks, especially stuff that's right in front of you when you're up high and you've got a hood that goes way out in front of you, a child, standing 5, 6, 10 feet in front of the vehicle is not visible. And so it is a real issue. I think the occupant safety regulations are going to make it tough to really increase visibility, but we're seeing some automakers trying to do some things with that. Some vehicles have gotten better. Honda's still pretty good at it, at visibility. Others, Toyota, for example, on some of their recent designs, you see where if you look at the belt line, it does kind of dip down towards the front of the doors, the side windows, so that it's a little bit lower, so you can see kind of what's beside you on either side. I think the thing we're going to have to rely on is more outward sensors, more radar and LiDAR and cameras that show us what's outside the vehicle.
Which kind of sucks. But I think I think there's also a thing for in-car. I mean, we've also seen the rise of smartphones in our cars, which people cannot put those damn things down. As someone who rides a motorcycle around, like when you're on a motorcycle, you're sitting a little bit higher, so you're looking down into everyone's cab, and you spend a lot of time like looking at people's faces in their rearview mirrors, and just to see what they're going to do. And there are a lot of people on their phones, so they're in these giant vehicles on their phones. And I think I think one of the things I really liked about the Subarus was the in-car monitoring. That has nothing to do with driver's assistance. It's just to make sure you're looking at the road. It just yells at you for not looking at the road. And I think at this point, as a society,
Lucid
we need
does
a car.
that too.
Yeah, we need a car that just yells at you for not doing your job.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we will see more of that. We're getting more and more vehicles that are coming to market with driver monitor systems. Volvo's new system in the EX90 is also including radar sensors to detect other vehicle occupants. I think the sensors inside that make sure that you're actually paying attention to the road are going to be a big part of this as well. All right. The other question that Daniel had is, what do you think about strong plug-in hybrids per the recent CARB rules? That's the California Air Resources Board. Bridge technology or long-term customer option? We argue about PHEVs at work. I work at a nonprofit that does research on the electric grid. Our team researches EVs and EV charging. Everyone on the team has an opinion about EVs. I personally see a future where PHEV pickups are akin to diesel pickups of today. They cost more up front and to maintain, but are tough to beat for customers who have to tow for work or want to tow for fun. Those who don't need such capability would be well served by BEV pickups. The public fast charging network doesn't seem to be getting better anytime soon. The incentives are to get stations in the ground, not to keep them running. And the proposed 97% reliability metric from the feds is great, but vague. Anyway, what do you think about plug-in hybrids in the U.S.?
You know what? I think people can have two cars. There's a lot of families that can't afford a second car. And there's a lot of families that have to do a lot of driving because, they work in the city, but they can't afford to live in that city. And they live in an apartment. And, there's a lot of sort of, I would like a perfect world where we could all be driving EVs and there'd be EV charging like in Norway where it's every 10 inches. But that's not what we are. That's not what we're doing right now. And I think a PHEV, if it helps them get some, save some money, it's more money up front, but save some money in the long run for their commute. I think, it's a good transition as we try to get this, this infrastructure thing figured out. I think we still have a way to go. I live in Northern California where there's an EV charger every 10 feet. I can't throw a rock without hitting one, but not everyone lives in my neighborhood. So
unless you go into a rural area of the state.
Yeah, and even then, there's still chargers all over the place. Like I was up in Yosemite, there was like 3 chargers within like the campground I was at, and at the campground they had chargers.
When I was in the Russian River Valley this summer on vacation, there were no chargers anywhere. So it varies a lot.
But I think that's why I think the plug-in hybrids are. I don't think they're necessarily just like a bridge. I really do think they're a long-term option because if you're only going to have one car, you can't afford 2 cars. Like, okay, you can afford 2, you can afford to get an electric and get whatever you want. But if you're only going to have one, this gives you some of the perks of having an electric without like, okay, we have to go on a road trip. We're not a family who can rent a car for the week, or we're not a family who can fly. We need to go on a road trip. Well, then take your plug-in hybrid. You can benefit from being able to plug it in and charge it and get that reduced, fuel bill by just having to plug in, and by reducing your emissions when you're home. But you can still just say, I don't have the time, the energy, the wherewithal to plot out everything for a fully electric vehicle every time we have to go on a road trip. It's still there. I think plug-in hybrids have a lot to recommend them. I know people are really like hot or cold on them. They either seem to sort of love them or hate them, but I think for the right person, they're a great happy medium between like, I can't rationalize the cost of an EV or fully going with an EV because it's not convenient for me all the time because of where I live or because of the infrastructure, because of the kind of driving I do. A plug-in hybrid takes care of that. You can use that sort of EV living when you can, and when you can't, you got a gas engine.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. One thing I would definitely say, and certainly, for applications like towing long distances, battery electric vehicles can certainly tow. We've seen that, with the Lightning and with the Rivian. Towing is not a problem, except if you want to go more than 100, 150 miles. Mm-hmm. Then it's a real problem. And they're
great at towing for 100 miles.
Yeah. then
not so much.
Plug-in hybrids will be a very important part of that solution. And I think, we've had some hints from Stellantis that that's what they're going to do with the Ram EV, that there's going to be a range extended version, which is essentially a plug-in hybrid that will be part of the Ram EV program. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Ford, offer a plug-in hybrid F-150 at some point as an alternative, for those that, want something more like the Lightning, but don't necessarily, but need to tow longer distances. The other thing, though, is if you are going to buy a plug-in hybrid, do not buy a plug-in hybrid unless you actually have someplace where you can plug it in daily.
Then you're just wasting money. Now you're just hauling a battery around.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to, if you can't, or don't plan to plug it in, whenever you're at home, you're hauling around 400 or 500 pounds of battery that you're not doing anything with. And so that's going to cut into your mileage. If that's the case, if you don't have someplace where you can plug in daily, then just buy a regular hybrid. Regular hybrid's going to give you a lot of the benefit. And if that's the case, if that's what works for you, then that's what you should do. And then if you can drive an electric, then do that too. I mean, this is why there's no silver bullet solution. It depends on what your personal circumstances are, where you live, what you do with your vehicles. So, all right, one last question from Bruce Ginsburg from someplace called Nashua.
Oh my God, he's literally in my town. Wow, hi Bruce.
I have placed a reservation for a 2024 Cadillac Lyriq all-wheel drive in May of this year. I've yet to see any on the road in my area. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, me neither.
I was wondering how many GM has shipped to date and how the production volume is progressing. Is GM on track to deliver 2024 all-wheel drive in late spring of 2024? In late spring of 2024, as per Lyriq reservation system. I think he actually meant 2023 there.
Yeah.
So, first of all, at least through the end of September, GM had not delivered very many Lyriqs. I think the number for Q3 was something like 36 that they had delivered. That is, 3 dozen Lyriqs that were delivered by the end of September. So there are very few of them out there. As far from what I've heard from GM, they do still plan to launch the 24 model in late spring and add all-wheel drive to that. GM did have an investor day on Thursday of this week, and they talked about some of their EV plans, and they had some delays in getting things ramped up with their Lordstown battery plant, but that apparently they're getting over that, and that caused some delays in ramping up production of the Hummer and also the Lyriq. So we'll see, towards the end of the year, when we get the Q4 sales numbers and delivery numbers from GM, we'll have a better idea, if you'll be able to get your Lyriq next spring. For now, they're saying, you should. It should be on track for delivery in late spring of next year. And then also, any update on the mileage range of the all-wheel drive version? Nothing there, although I would expect that it will be somewhat less than the front or the rear-wheel drive version because extra weight and drag. It'll probably be somewhere around 280, 285 miles, I think. And then Bruce also, winters in Florida, and we'll leave the Lyriq plugged in for 4 months while gone in winter months. Will this have an adverse effect on the vehicle long term? I think that's probably not a good idea to leave it plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I probably should look this up.
I'm actually Googling this I'm trying to find it because the answer is no, and I know in my heart it's no, but I can't get the details at my hands. Sam, I feel like you might have those in your engineering brain. No?
Yeah, I would say do not leave it plugged in for 4 months. Charge it to about 80% state of charge, and then go in and disconnect the 12-volt battery and leave it sitting, with the high voltage battery, the big battery, at about 80% state of charge. After 4 months, it should still have plenty of range left to start it with. And then, like I said, just unplug or disconnect the 12-volt battery, because what that'll do, disconnecting the 12-volt battery will disconnect power from all the other systems that would be draining the high voltage battery. So all the computers and everything else will be disconnected. So, if you leave a lithium-ion battery partly charged, it has a very slow self-discharge rate. But if you just leave it parked normally, then there's various other systems in the car that wake up periodically and do stuff, like looking for over-the-air software updates and things like that. And those things will eventually drain the high voltage battery
and the 12-volt battery at some point.
And the 12-volt too.
Yeah. So then you got to jumpstart your 12-volt battery, which is weird because I had to do that the other day.
Yeah. So
did you really?
On the Kona?
On the Kona. So the trunk hadn't closed all the way, and so the light was on, and the car hadn't been driven for a few days. And then we went out to it, and nothing was coming on, and it was rainy and cold, and so I have a little jump start, one of those little
lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah,
one of those little gizmos that has air up your tires and jump start. And so I had to open the hood and plug it in. And it's really fun because when you jump start a regular car, you'll rev the engine a little bit on the car powering the dead car. And then you just hit the button. It's all click click click, and everything just came on.
I really thought it was you just push the button. It's like, okay, we're good now. There's no rev.
Yeah, there's
I've
no.
never tried to jumpstart an electric car.
Yeah, there's no.
You don't need as much power because you're not cranking the engine or anything. So.
That's
true. On another car, if you try to do it right away, you get that. There's nothing. It's just like click 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 click. Everything just turns on.
So leave the Lyriq plug charged at about 80%, 75 to 80% state of charge. Disconnect the 12-volt battery, or just disconnect the negative terminal from the 12-volt battery, and then get a battery tender. Go to your local auto parts store or wherever, or Lowe's or Home Depot. Get a battery tender for about $30. It's just a little trickle charger that cycles your 12-volt battery up and down a little bit and keeps it in good condition. Just hook that up to the 12-volt battery, but leave the negative cable disconnected from the battery, so nothing in the car will be powered up. But you'll be maintaining your 12-volt battery, so it'll be in good shape. When you come back, you just disconnect the battery tender, hook up the 12-volt or the negative terminal on the 12-volt battery, and you should be good to go.
Bada bing, bada bing.
Now you're ready.
Yep.
Now you're kicking with gas.
All right. So that's it for questions for this week. I am. Let's say goodbye. Cool.
All right, everyone. We will see you. When's the next one? We'll all be together again next Sunday.
Yeah.
Woohoo! 2 episodes in a row where we're all together.
I'll be recovering from the Go Ice Cream bourbon butterscotch pecan ice cream pie.
It'll only be Sunday, so we'll all still slightly be in a Thanksgiving food coma.
Yeah.
Food coma.
Food coma. All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Geico makes it easy to get affordable renter's insurance in as little as 90 seconds. That way, you have more energy for harder things, like the laundry. Why is it so difficult to fold clothes? They just end up wrinkly anyway, or on the floor in a pile that just sits there, taunting you. But with renter's insurance through Geico, at least you know that those clothes and the other things you love are covered. Get more with Geico.